I guess, like, I wanted to talk to you about boys in the space and men in the space. And specifically when men say we should help men, do they mean men like Vaush?
It's possible that he just didn't know this stuff was lolly, but it's really hard to believe, especially in his space, because he knows, like, all about anime, all about lolly. He knows about it. Like, I could totally understand, like, people in my audience don't really know. We have to, like, we had to figure out what lolly was when we first heard about this, and like feels like an invasion of your privacy already, especially when specific people that you've spoken to, you've already said, like, I don't talk about this sort of stuff, and then they ask anyways. That already feels like a bit much. One. Two, if you answer, that's none of your business. It sounds like the answer is yes, and I'm not telling you.
This brings into mind that one time I asked Lav on stream, just like, I didn't even think about it because I didn't think it was a yes, which was my mistake. When I asked her if she slept with Steven, I was just like, I was making a funny, but it was like, did you do it, Lav? Did you do it? And it was like a big, but then I realized, like, now in hindsight, I was like, oh, I also put Lav in a situation to lie, which she did.
The honest thing is to make sure that the person who's giving you their intimate information and having an intimate relationship with you, that person who trusts you, that you don't let down their trust, that you do the right thing for them. And so for the person who I'm talking to, yes, with that person, I'm going to make sure they trust me.
Yeah, I don't trust people who move the, like, goalpost 1,000 times in a conversation. It makes me feel like this feels like a lie, and I don't like it.
It's everybody else seems to be perfectly okay with that. Just changing what your problem is over and over, changing, like, literally directly contradicting yourself over and over, and just like trying to find some way to stay mad. Like, that everybody else seems perfectly fine with that.
Freak. Okay, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Look at you starting stream and starting right away with me. Very bold.
Yeah. I even just realized, like, right as I started, that I don't have vape juice, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna have like a very short stream today. No. I have to go to the store to get it. So.
Oh, never mind. You can't go get it.
Yeah, I can't go get it.
Never mind. How are you? You've had a very interesting few weeks, or 2 weeks, or whatever it's been.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. Been busy, but yeah. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
your coverage of things. Yeah.
Listen, this space is such a unique collaboration of people. And I guess the reason I wanted to talk to you was not about your stuff, though. I mean, if you want to talk about it, we can, but mostly about, I guess, like, I wanted to talk to you about boys in the space and men in the space, and specifically when men say we should help men, do they mean men like Vaush?
Shit. I don't know. So I guess we should probably start off, because I haven't seen your, like, takes on Vaush, or and I haven't seen. I watched his last video going over things. I haven't seen Ethan's most recent, like, response to that. But how did you feel about Vaush, and what happened with him and what he said?
Yeah. Okay, well, to summarize it, first and foremost, I'm not a Vaush viewer. So I don't know what his content would normally be. I don't know exactly all of the lore with him. I'm pretty new into understanding Vaush as an entity. I knew he had a thing with the Trinity, him and Hassan and Destiny, but I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know the falling out. I'm not really sure on all the details. So when I started to consume the thing between him and Ethan, my job was just to be sort of like, what is this person? What category are they in? And are they ill-intended or not? So the folder leaking, wasn't really fazed by that. I did see the leak to confirm how I felt about the photos in the folder. My concern was more like, when we call people things, are we being accurate or hyperbolic?
Stop. Sorry, not you. My alarm was going on.
Wow, Alexa coming in hot.
Go.
Are we good?
Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
Okay. So there's a lot of things that I covered, but basically I'm pretty sure Vaush is a degenerate that is struggling with multitude of issues that are now, to a lot of normie bubbles, looking either worse than they are, or to his bubble, not as bad as they seem. I can't tell if his bubble is giving him too much good faith and Ethan's giving him too much bad faith, But those leaks between what Destiny covered today, I covered old Destiny covering the original falling out between Poppy and Vaush, pretty degenerate. Pretty bad,
Hmm.
honestly. Worse than the folder, I would argue, because the folder involved no real humans.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
So the
Hmm.
way he treated real humans, pretty bad.
Hmm.
And so I think that, honestly, not that I'm a therapist, but I would recommend therapy with a focus on autism and a specialist in degeneracy.
Okay.
I think that's where I am with Vosh. He just seems like an incredible liar, but I'm not sure why he's lying.
Yeah, it's that's what, like, it's possible that he just didn't know this stuff was lolly, but it's really hard to believe, especially in his
Mm,
space, because he knows like all about anime, all about lolly. He knows about that
yeah.
shit. Like, I could totally understand like people in my audience don't really know. We had to figure out what lolly was when we first heard about this, and like try
Oh,
to
that's
like
interesting.
understand, and like yeah, and so it's for him that's not the case. He's not that person. So it's a
Yeah.
lot harder to believe for him that he just happened to end up with this stuff. Um
Yeah.
and so yeah, I think I'm in the same place. Like I the stuff that was on his computer, super gross. He the stuff that happened with Poppy and them, he still to this day I think like maintains like, well, Poppy's a piece of shit, so I'll never
Yeah.
apologize to her. But what I did wasn't great. Just fuck her anyways. And
Yeah.
um, I to some extent maybe I can understand that. I don't know, but yeah, I I do think that Ethan was a bit too bad faith, and I do think
Mm,
that Vash's friends were too charitable. And yeah, I think that we probably have the same takes across the board. Um, although I don't, and I had to make this distinction with other people as well, but I don't see evidence that he's like actually like a pedophile or anything.
mm, mhm.
It does make sense to me to some extent where he's talking about like proportions and shit, that maybe that's the thing that he's attracted to. It doesn't sound like he's some sort of like child predator or anything. There's no
Sure.
evidence of that, but but yeah, the type of stuff that he's into is it seems a bit fucked up.
Yeah, I think in my look, like I allow people to misspeak all the time. I misspeak all the time. I'm always okay with misspeaking, but if we're going to be very very clear and precise, I wouldn't say that there's any evidence for him being a PDF file, but I would say that there's evidence for him liking power dynamics, with
Hmm.
him liking vulnerable people, with him seeking a desire to push boundaries. I would say that he's into a lot of like CNC oriented things. Even the old leaks with Poppy DMs, he's very into like she would ask him like 3 4 times like, I don't want this, and that he would sort of like push and push and push, but in like
Hmm.
a very like a specific way. And so I think that I
A
couldn't
very
say without a
smug and
Mhm.
like a very like smug and arrogant way, like I know
Oh
you
my
want
gosh.
this sort of thing. Yeah.
Ugh, he read it. I swear he read that in some porno, and he's like, "Yeah, she's gonna like this, bro." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Slow down there, Tiger." He kept saying to well, he called into Destiny. This is old Destiny. He called into Destiny. He's like, "Steven, I know I'm charismatic." I was like, "Slow down there, buddy." He's like so like, "I know I'm handsome. I know I'm smart. I know."
Yep.
Which I guess if his personality wasn't so deplorable, he would be, but like also no. It's kind of
Yep.
funny. But yeah, I think yeah, go ahead.
I know.
Oh.
I was gonna let you finish.
Yeah, I would say that I think I want to be really precise with it because a PDF file is a very specific accusation, but also what really blew the audience's mind, and again, this is my work, so I understand if people don't like vibe with this, but a lot of the crimes against children aren't done by PDF files, they're done by child predators or people who are
Mhm.
looking for vulnerable people. So again, like if we're going to be very accurate in protecting children, and keep in mind no child was harmed in this conversation between Vosh and his computer, then we really should be talking about why people target vulnerable people, whether adults or children in general. And I think that that's not a conversation people wanted to have, especially age 3, which to be fair, I understand from their perspective, their parents, they're definitely concerned. But honestly, if you're concerned about your kids, you should be paying attention to their teachers and their preachers.
Sure.
Probably not some degenerate on Twitch.
Yeah. in like a lot of the stuff that H3 was saying about Vaush just was like bad faith. Like they really were
Mm.
like taking old quotes out of context, and over people were saying like, "Oh no, you're taking those things out of context." And they're like, "No, we played the context." And it's like, "Okay,
Ugh.
well that's even worse, dude. You guys did play the context and you still came to the wrong conclusion." So, you still said that he was like defending pedophilia or defending child porn, and that's just not what
Mm.
he was doing in any of those clips. But okay, so when you say when we
Mhm.
want to help men,
Mhm.
do we mean Vosh? What do you mean by that? Because normally when I hear people say like we want to help men or something like that, we're talking about like young men who have trouble dating, or men who have like too much stress and are committing suicide or something like that. So what is it that you like mean, or you think people mean when they say that they want to help men?
I was on a panel the other day, which I know you reviewed with Rashad and Wick and everybody, and we were talking about like men and women ideologically moving in different directions.
The other day, wasn't
And
that like three
oh, okay,
weeks,
it was like a few
a
weeks ago.
month
Everybody
ago?
relax. Everything is a day to me. Okay, what is time? I have time blindness. What is
Okay,
time? You know?
okay.
Okay, so and I know when you reviewed it, you were like, "Why does Brittany always go individual? Why does she always do this?" And I was like, I really struggle when people are like, "We need to help men." I'm like, "Which ones?" Because like Vosh, because like he's a whole group. Or do you mean the incels? Or do you mean this kind of man? Or like which kind of man are we helping? Because like even if you said I'm going to help the average man, like there's no one individual man that is that average, and so there's a
Mhm.
group of somebody out there, but I just don't know who it is. And I look at Voshes and I look at the incels who often in these documentaries are autistic, and I look at these people who are struggling, and I'm wondering like if we want to help them, don't we first have to recognize like why they're actually suffering and not just because they don't have six pack abs? Like this cannot be the reason they're suffering, right? So when you say like or people say I want to help men, I'm looking at Vosh like this one, right? Cuz he's a mess. Everyone else is doing kind of fine. Or no, is it not the Voshes? It's somebody else.
Well, so first, like the individuality aspect of it is like a lot of that has to do with a lot of that's going to have more to do with like policy and like government regulations and things like that.
Mm,
So like that, and some social changes. So like feminism was like trying to make it to where women had the right to vote, they were able to own property, um they can like work high position jobs and be
mhm,
respected in the same way, have like the same respect in a household, and um you know, things like that, where they're gonna have like the same positions as men. Uh, I think when people say we should help men, I think they're kind of saying the same thing, is that like men are allowed to be emotional, men are allowed to be like the caretaker, they can be the ones who stay home and take care of the kids. Men can be nurses, men can be teachers, men can like, and they want to say like, you know, say all the things that women can do, all the things that women are doing more often, all the things that we consider to be feminine now, men can do that shit too. What allow men to
mhm,
be just as broad and just as varied as females are, because like right now women have like a very wide range of things that they can do, but
mhm,
they're still feminine while they're doing it.
mhm,
Whereas men have like they're masculine. That's it. You can't. It's way worse for a man to do something feminine than it is for a woman to do something masculine. And so, like lots
mhm.
of times when we're talking about helping men, we are talking about, yes, like allowing men the ability to do more things and have a wider range of masculinity, of shit that's like available to them through masculinity. Does that make sense?
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, I know it makes total sense. It's so weird now hearing that because of course when I was like in my activism days and I was working with organizations, obviously the feminist groups pulled off into subcategories because it couldn't fit everyone's needs, and so we had to make a lot of groups to feed different kind of women's needs. But weirdly enough, there was an activist group of feminists that were focused on these particular needs for men, but the men were not interested in it, and now to hear them say they're interested in it is beautiful. I think that was ultimately the goal. But it is kind of funny. Like now I often yeah, I often struggle with this sort of like how communities know it we're going to need it, but then the communities don't realize it, and then by the time they do, I feel like sometimes these men groups blame women, but women were already advocating for this for men, but they weren't being heard at the time. And now it's not like one to one here. Like not all feminist groups are advocating for men. But there was a subcategory of group I was involved with in Seattle that tried really hard to involve men in the activities. But it is hard to focus on men's needs through feminist groups. So obviously they need their own groups just to focus in on it. But then I wonder like who is this man, I guess, that needs this help in the first place, right? Just like with women, cuz everyone's perspective is that women have everything they need and men have everything they need. So who are the people who don't have something they need? You know, cuz you know how you know what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Um, okay, so like the idea that like men who go out and if there's women there, the guy's just kind of expected to pay for it, right? Like you could want to like take your wife out and she says, oh, I want to invite my friends, and so all her girlfriends come, and now you got like 5 women there, but because you're the one guy, you're expected to pay for all of this is something that like we think of as like puts a lot more pressure on men, and there's just these expectations of men to always be taking care of women in this sort of way. And then there's tons of things like that. Not that's a very small thing, a very small example, but there's tons of stuff where we think there's too much expectations on men, and then men end up committing suicide at much higher rates than women do. And so there's like a compounding amount of problems where like they're expected to be the breadwinner, they're expected to like be physical and you know be protectors, and there's like yeah a ton of problems. But then on top of that, like yeah, they don't really talk about their feelings, and if they do talk about their feelings, it's considered a feminine thing, and so then they just commit suicide at higher rates. And so you want to like normalize a bunch of different sorts of traits for men so that
Yeah.
they feel more vulnerable and capable of talking to people around them, and then are probably committing suicide at lower rates, or that they're having less emotional problems in their lives, or they feel more comfortable going to therapy. They feel more comfortable like yeah getting the help that they need while they're alive. And this isn't just to keep them from committing suicide, but just you know whatever wide range of issues that could come
Yeah.
from all of these compounding problems. And so yes, like when we're talking about like you know some policies that we would want to like implement and things like that, that's one thing. But then there's also like the social aspect of just being more open to men having more broad range of emotions and feelings and talking about these things without it being a negative from them. And so
Mhm.
yeah, like it's we're not looking at one guy and saying, hey, this is the one guy who needs this thing. It's like uh all guys just need more things available to them. All guys need to
Sure.
be feel capable of doing these things more generally. And we have to make it to where women are not going to like shame a guy or say like, oh well, I'm not dating you anymore, or I'm you know you're a piece of shit if you didn't um if you didn't like pay for the meal, or you know
Mhm.
you're not a real man if you're not like paying for all of my shit, like that sort of stuff that we're trying to like yeah we're trying to change the expectations.
Yeah, I think for the first time I saw a TikTok about that. A guy was at a party or something and his wife's friends thought he would pay for people. And I've never heard of that my whole life. That's not something everyone in my life is very independent. Women work, men work, you pay your own way. Like nobody's supposed to pay for anything. Like sometimes on a date, the person who asked out would pay, or maybe the man would pay if you're religious, but like it's just whoever pays pays. And so I thought that was such a like, oh, interesting. Like I never who does this? Like who's practicing this way of dating? Like who expects their man to pay for everybody? Like their friends? I never heard about that. But okay, I was like, okay, that's a thing. So because the United States is so diverse, we're not going to agree on like should all men open doors for women. So is it okay that some places do that and some places don't? And then do we understand that like this idea that will change the dating expectation means that no one's going to be happy, right? Because not everyone universally wants what we
Mhm.
want. So then how do you like cater to the individual groups or categories of like communities that need different things. Like religious communities need different things than secular communities. So when we again want to talk about helping men, are we expecting these smaller communities to focus on the men in their community?
You're just hoping that you make enough change to where there's enough acceptance for these people to find somebody that like that's just going to be healthier for them. Like
Okay.
women who wanted to be the boss bitch and be more like have some more masculine traits and be in charge and all of that shit. They could do that one way or the other, but they wouldn't do that because it was socially shamed. It was something that was looked down upon. It was something that made, they know, oh, well, if I go do this, it's going to be harder for me to find a guy who's actually going to want to be with me. I have to be more docile and quiet and more feminine so that I can actually find somebody who's going to want to marry me. And so it's the same here where like as social change happens, men are capable of being these people and hopefully finding a partner at the same time.
Okay. I want to ask you a question I've been asking people.
Hmm.
And whatever your answer is, good. When you think about dating, are you dating to compete with other people or are you dating to find like your soulmate, whatever that means to you? Like that very special person that you're like, "Oh my god, like I feel like this is my human." Whatever you call that.
So we've talked about this before. I don't think that I could put it into like a dichotomy like that.
Mhm.
Because I've recognized over time that there are definitely like things about myself that are competitive. So like we talked about one time that like there are girls sometimes that like I know are into me and they like me, but I'm just not really into them. But
Mhm.
then I know a ton of other guys are into them. And all of a sudden, they become way more attractive to me. And
Sure.
all of a sudden, and I think that is a competitive nature. I think that that's what that is that like just knowing that these other guys would be like, shit, Tom got that. Like,
Mhm.
fuck, like that all of a sudden makes me more attracted to them. I don't know if that's what it is, but I think it is. And normally, if that
Okay.
happens, like I try to like catch myself on it, but not all the time. I don't always. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, I don't even give a fuck. Like, I think she's hot now, and so I'm totally
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah.
this. Like, um,
Yeah.
and so yeah, so there's that aspect of like competition
Yeah.
with people, and there's always competition in like just the way that like yes, I like that other people are attracted to the women that I'm dating, or I like that other guys hit on my girlfriend, or I like that they're looking at her, or stuff like that. Like there's always that aspect, but that's just an aspect to it. Obviously, I
Mm.
still want to get along with them. I still want to have chemistry with them. I still want to, we still have to have some shared um, interests in order to do things together and to enjoy each other's company. And so it's not one or the other. I could never put it into a dichotomy, but I do think like competition is generally going to be part of what it is that we're doing in relationships.
Okay. Do you think I'm trying to ask it in like a maybe slightly different way, but do you think when you're dating a woman, you're looking for someone you get well enough on with to form a life with, or are you looking for a very specific kind of person?
I'm looking for somebody to get along with. I'm looking for somebody
Okay.
that I have chemistry with. I'm looking for somebody that I'm going to enjoy their company. They're going to enjoy mine. We're going to
Mhm.
have fun together. I think the harder part of relationships is once you like get through the honeymoon phase and then you get into this like regular phase where you just have to tolerate each other. You just have to be around each other all the time and not hate each other,
Mhm.
and it doesn't have to still be this thing where you like need each other 24/7 and like always touching each other and all of this. That's the harder part, and it's definitely the harder part to get used to. But if you get into that and you still enjoy each other's company and you still want to be around each other and you still want to go forward spending your lives together, then I think that's like the thing that really like makes a relationship work is that you enjoy each other's company long term.
Mm. You don't have to share this obviously because it's so personal, but are your parents are still together, right?
Mhm.
Are they like would you say like they're super super duper in love or they have like a really nice companionship that they've made work?
I think that they have a nice companionship that they've made work. I think that I think they probably some aspects probably stayed together because they had 5 kids and wanted to.
Big family.
Some aspects they also my dad was a pastor, and if he
Mm-hmm.
got divorced, that would be like a huge mark on his record that like he's not the family man that churches want
Sure.
to be a pastor. I think I think they've had like their share of issues and problems to where they've you know, um it's not what it was when they were younger, but I think that yeah, they found something that works, and they still hang out all the time and enjoy each other's company and are able to tolerate each other.
That makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, now weird question on sort of related to Vosh. I was curious about the line of degeneracy because you said your community didn't even really know what lolly was, which is fair. I don't think that most people know what lolly is. Like I even made the argument that
Mhm.
50 Shades of Grey is probably long-term worse for society than lolly, only because like lolly isn't consumed by a lot of people in America. It's a very Japanese thing. They're having their own issue with it, but like here it's not, you have to really go looking for something adjacent, right? It's very weird. But at the same time, like your community, I wonder, do you guys have something like adjacent to that that would be like very strange to normies in a way? Like you know how every normie culture has like a thing that's like weird? Like obviously in even my bubbles, like lolly's probably like the weird thing. Like that's a little shady, a little like we're open to the discussion, but you know what I mean? What would be like your thing?
I don't know. When we're talking about lolly, it's hard to think of something
Yeah.
that is that like because probably the most stigmatized thing in the world is like pedophilia and
Yeah.
children and those
Yeah.
sorts of things. And so, yeah, I can't imagine something that I could put in the same box as
What about CGI troll porn?
um we don't so yeah, we don't really even like talk about that over here because we do talk a lot about like porn. We talk a lot about like what it is we're attracted to. That's
Right.
something that like a lot of people were pulling up is like us like actually pulling up specific women to talk about specific aspects that men are attracted to,
Mhm.
and like what it is that like makes us attracted to those things. Um and so yeah, we're like we do talk a lot about those sorts of aspects and sexual dynamics and things like that, but not we never really talk about like troll porn or anything like that. And through this we did talk a little bit about the idea that like lots of times when you are looking at porn, sometimes you'll just end up with like a ton of like alien women with
Yeah.
5 breasts and a massive tail and like a third head coming out of their hip and shit
Yeah.
like that. You're like, what the fuck? Who watches this?
Yeah.
Like, how can you even get into this? It just it
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. And so yeah, I like those things for me, and it's seemingly for most of the people in my community, are just so far outside the bounds that we have trouble
Hmm.
understanding them.
That's so interesting to me. I was kind of befuddled at sort of I had somebody in the comment section that was like, if you like tentacle hentai, you're into literal tentacles. I was like, okay, first of all, not even close, bro. But then I have a lot of girls in my audience. So the girls in my audience, like we've been reading like vampire werewolf smut for like our whole life. Like we've been reading like girl novels be graphic and
Mm-hmm.
very questionable sometimes. And they're all New York Times bestsellers, by the way. I was telling
Mm-hmm.
my husband about a story I remember reading when I was younger about like Viking kind of setting, and like the girl had to be his slave, and like well he had a fever and he didn't know what he was doing. He like basically has sex with her. And then it's like this big like she's into it and he's into it, but then the next day he doesn't remember it. And so I'm like, I don't know what just happened here, but I this is questionable. But like in the story, I remember reading it when I was younger thinking like, "Oh yeah, this is just like a normal book you got at the Barnes& and Noble or like the library." And then looking back now, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, it's just kind of like porn, but also like CNC, like consent not consent." But it's like in our normal New York Times bestsellers, or like Laurel K. Hamilton's one of my favorites, and she's like a New York Times bestseller, very popular. People interview her at book conventions and stuff. And she basically writes like kind of like werewolf vampire smut, but also there's mystery involved. But it's like, Marvel actually worked with her and she has a comic book series with them.
Hmm.
Like, so she's very, like, normal, but not normal. And so I kind of wonder when we're having these conversations with normies, like, I don't know if they notice, like, oh, did you know, like, Wonder Woman was made by a BDSM polyamorist who, like, had a BDSM element to her whip, and, like, the American Association for Protecting Children, like, made Wonder Woman, like, inaccessible to people because they thought it was corrupting children. So, like, even Wonder Woman at one point in American history was considered bad for kids.
Why? Wait, because she was sexual? Like, because she
Yeah,
was
because of her
like,
whip and, like, her clothes and, like, the way she would, like, lasso people.
wow.
So, like, again, when we talk about, like, what is taboo, I think it's kind of interesting. Now, some things are kinda, like, obvious. We don't wanna harm any real people. I actually stopped watching real people porn a long time ago because I all these, like, non-consensual stories kept coming out, and then I got really nervous about if I'm watching something unconsensual, so I just switched to, like, hentai. And hentai is, like,
Oh,
really
okay.
strange as you know, but, like, I watch a lot of hentai, but even then, it's been a while since I've even bothered to watch anything. Girls have our imaginations. But I
Hmm.
always wonder when we're having these conversations, like, are people I can't tell if people are really not engaging with these things or if they're saying they're not engaging with them or if they're aware that other people are doing it and the world is still functional. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, okay, so there's tons of things that like are really popular when you look at Pornhub, and like the most popular
Mhm.
types of things are it when you're looking at some sort of like fetish or something that's gonna add a like a different element to it. It's normally shit like step brother,
Right.
stepsister, stepfather, like stuff like that,
Right.
where it adds a bit of taboo, it makes it feel a little bit wrong, but doesn't mean you're actually like into your stepbrother or into
For
your
sure.
like family members or anything like that, right? And obviously,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
women, you mentioned, have their own things. There's tons of it seems to be really common that women have attractions to like rape fantasies and
Mhm.
being dominated and some like dark mysterious guy where they don't even know who he is and they're having
Right.
sex with him and that sort of stuff. Like those things are fairly common, but when it comes to and I think cartoons are probably becoming more and more popular. The like I've tried watching cartoons. My problem with them is that it's the same animation over and over and over
Yeah.
and over and over and over, and
True.
it's like a half a second animation. So it's not
Yeah.
like a 2 minute animation that's over and over. It's like, yes, it's like a 1 second animation that's just on loop, repeat for
Right.
like 2 3 minutes, and then they switch to a
Yeah.
new loop for three, and it's like, okay, this just isn't realistic at all. It's not I
Yeah.
can't watch this. But I think that like the more that like AI stuff gets better, the more that graphics are getting better, the more that that'll probably become a norm and more popular. But I do think that most
Mhm.
people are looking for stuff that's a bit more realistic and has more variety to it than that. So there's obviously a ton of people with a ton of like fetish type stuff that they'll watch, like somebody getting stuck in a dryer or you know, MILF porn, that sort of shit. And
Sure.
anytime you look at the top 10 lists, those sorts of things are always there. But
Yeah.
they're not even like always telling you that it's just a fetish for like a stepbrother or stepsister or something like that,
Sure.
but it's normally also telling you like young women. Like if it's stepdaughter or stepsister, it's like 18 years old and they're like
Yeah, of
dressed
course.
like a cheerleader or
They even
something
have to
like
put
that.
step, so it coincides with the law because
Mhm.
they don't wanna do incest stuff, so they actually have to put step. Even though it's obvious, like, it's all about dynamics. I feel like people are interested in power dynamics, in the feeling, the taboo, the, "Oh my gosh," like, you know, I think people are interested in, like, the imagery. Like, I remember I went through a large stage where I just watched lesbian porn and I wanted nothing else, but I only watched lesbian porn that was, like, very specific, or I always watched porn with like, I was going for, like, a vibe. I was like, "What vibe do I want?" And I'm the kind of person that doesn't watch the whole video. You know, I just kind of skip to like the good parts. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So everyone has like a different vibe. Even with hentai, I'm like, what vibe am I looking for? And then I go to look for that vibe. I don't care what the fucking characters are doing. I don't care what the storyline is. I don't care who's who. I'm just looking for a vibe. And I think that the vibe is really hard to explain to people that are not thinking about it that way. And I wonder if that coincides with certain types of people. Like I wonder if D&Ders watch more vibey porn, or I wonder if people who are into role play or LARPing or BDSM, like do they watch more like vibey porn versus like more normative porn? Are they less concerned with like the imagery?
Did
I
you
always
watch
wonder about that as well.
or did you play the most recent Grand Theft Auto?
No.
Okay. There's a guy, I forget his name. I'm blanking on his name. I'm sure chat knows it, but there's a guy who is like he lives in a trailer and he's this kind of like a greasy dude, and he says at one point like they're like, we have to go find this thing. Where is it? And he says, I don't know. It's like porn. We'll know it when we see it, or something like that. Like we'll just have to keep looking until we know what. Yeah, Trevor. And that, I think that's what it is for most people, is they don't know what they're looking for when they first get on, and they're scrolling through a bunch of different porn things, and they'll search different keywords or different like actresses and shit, and they're just going to keep going through and then trying to find whatever it is. They don't know what they're in the mood for, but once they see it, they're like, okay, that's the thing that I'm looking for right now. And I think that that's how most people engage with porn, and what it is that they're doing when they're searching.
Okay, how about this? I remember in my early 20s, I was talking to a guy who was working at a grocery store, and we were talking about porn on our computers. And I was like, he's like, oh, I always erase my history. I was like, I never even think about that. You erase your computer history? He's like, yeah. And I was like, why? He's like, well, what if somebody like sees that I've looked at porn? I was like, so? And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, are people really out here? I don't even remember the last time I erased my history. To this day, I don't even remember to do that. I never think about it. And then I was thinking about the idea of like Vaush having a folder on his computer. Now, I have a folder of pretty art because I want to mimic it for OF or something, but like I don't really have a porn folder because like I'm not going to rewatch most stuff, right? But I would say that always seemed funny to me. Like somebody would erase their history. And I wondered like, everyone thought it was weird that Vaush had the folder on his computer, but I mean, I've dated really neurodivergent people. I don't know why they have folders on their computers. Like, I think they collect them. Like, I dated a guy who was like 12 years older than me. He had a collection of porn. I have friends who are neurodivergent. They have collections of porn, like alphabetized, like categorized, like like they have it by genre. This guy had so many unique videos of porn saved, and I would just go through them. I'm like, oh my gosh, like zombie porn, weird, just like the weirdest shit. And you never think about it. And I'm like, what is this obsession? Like
Yeah,
some
but
people just
that
get like,
isn't that. I think that's part of it, is like you just going through it and looking at it and being like, this is weird. Like, that's the part that people don't want. They don't want somebody looking at what they're looking at and being like, why is this person so weird? Why are they into this
well,
stuff?
not weird in
Like,
a bad
that's what
way,
they're
just like
afraid of.
weird that you save it. But I think it's kind of, I mean, I thought it was cool. I didn't judge him, obviously. I mean, I'm pro porn. I'm a sex worker. So like, I don't care if people have porn. I just think like saving it is weird. Cause like, why would you? Well, I guess you would watch it for the fan of it. Maybe he liked the thrill of like, look at this weird video I found, which I think is reasonable, right? But like, that must be strange to some people because like some people just look at porn as like what I'm trying to fucking explain to you is like some people have a different relationship with the porn. Is what I'm trying to say.
I think people
I don't
find
think
something that they
it's bad.
like. I think that they know that like there's times where they're having like a really hard time finding something, and they're searching for a very, very long period of time, and they don't want to
Sure.
search for a long period of time. So
Oh, good point.
eventually they're just saving the things that they like, and just going back to it over and over.
Do you think it was weird that he had a folder on his computer?
Your ex-boyfriend?
No, Vosh.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
especially like as a streamer, that's like something that I try to like avoid at all times, is like never having pornographic stuff on my computer. Obviously I fucked
Yeah.
up on that recently, so that's a thing that I'm sure
Oh,
somebody's gonna bring up, but
was
I
that the stream
like
we were on together? Because it disappeared.
yes.
No, that was something different.
Yes, it
No?
was. It
Yes?
was the Wix
Okay,
stream,
it was.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed it was gone, and I wanted to read your comments, and I was like, man, I love comments, and then I didn't see it up. Okay, yeah, that happens. Honestly, I have my own OF photos saved in my download folder, and I'm always like worried and I'm panicking, but I'm too lazy to organize it, bro. It just takes forever, and I don't want to organize it. So I get it. I mean, I have shit on my computer too that's definitely against TOS.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I ask you a question that's a little bit personal? You don't have to answer it, but is also not even related to this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. You said something recently that I thought was interesting, and I just wondered your no judgment personal perspective on it. During the whole controversy you were having, and it felt a lot like personal stuff was going on the internet. So but a specific YouTuber said that they asked you, and they asked the lady in your life, like a question about you guys being intimate,
Hmm.
and you both decided not to tell her the truth.
Hmm.
And I wanted to know, no judgment, why did you guys have to lie? And why couldn't you have said, like, none of your fucking business, ho? Why are you asking me? Because it's kind of
Uh,
inappropriate to be asked.
so the first thing is, one, it's kind of like when they ask in the first place, it
Yeah.
already feels like kind of it feels like an invasion of your
Yeah.
privacy already, especially when specific people that you've spoken to, you've already said like, I don't talk about this sort of stuff, and then they ask anyways. That
Yeah.
already feels like a bit much. One. Two, if you answer, that's none of your business. It sounds like the answer is yes, and I'm not telling you.
Right.
So
Right.
you are answering when you say that. Like, that's what anybody will take it as, is I'm not answering that sort of thing. So there
Yeah.
was one time where I was talking to a specific person, and I said, they said, do girls send you pics sometimes, or do you ever have like flirt with girls in DMs and stuff like that? And I was like, I'm not talking to you about that. What are you doing? And then she starts asking about specific girls, and I'm like, again, I'm not answering that question. I'm not talking to you about this sort of stuff. You know, we don't talk about this sort of stuff. And so in that case, yes, she asked things in a specific way to where I was able to say over and over, I'm not talking to you about this sort of thing. But if the very first question is, hey, you and this specific person, are you guys dating? It would be like, if I say none of your business, then the answer is yes, obviously. Because
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
anybody else, I would have just said no, obviously, because
Yeah.
like it's just the first reaction. Like, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
But so I have to just say no now. I just like my only option, if I want to keep it private, if I want to keep it secret, the only option is no. So that's one. The reason for wanting to keep it secret is like a ton of reasons. Obviously, one, I don't want people in my personal business. Two, she doesn't want people in her business. Three, people, you're dating a streamer, like people start treating you differently. It's gonna have like a different dynamic in chat where like people
Yeah.
are gonna look at you differently and treat you differently. And three, there's like, or four, I guess there's I like being able to like be a bit more open and like flirt with people on stream and girls in chat and stuff like that. And I think if they are like, oh, your girlfriend's here watching in chat, this is going to be more uncomfortable now. That like creates like a weirder dynamic for people now. And so yeah, so like there's a ton of reasons why if I'm talking to a girl, I don't want other people to know that I'm talking to her, because yes, it just creates a ton of other problems. And that's
Yeah.
and that's just in general. Like, it's not just even with specific girls, but just in general, it's just a lot harder to kind of come out with that sort of stuff and tell people about your personal information, because they love to use that sort of shit against you. They love to like
Yeah.
find ways to use shit against you all the time. And so you're just giving them a new thing to like, oh, you don't like me? Go after this girl then. And you'll have an easier time getting under my skin or something, right?
Oh, absolutely. No, I even sometimes people are so sweet, like in Croatia, they'll be like, "Oh my gosh, like I'm in Croatia. Are you here?" And I was like, "Okay, I can't answer that in any way, because if I start saying no, you're eventually going to narrow it down, and I don't like try to hide who I am, but I don't try to volunteer it either." And
Mm-hmm.
so it's one of those things where like if you answer enough questions enough, people might be innocently asking, but also it's like it's a little private. Or I've recently made some YouTube friends, which I love it, and we've been talking in private to kind of like build some sort of rapport together. And um I when we negotiated our boundaries, I was like, I want to talk to you about work. I want to talk to you about anything I talk about you on stream. I don't want to talk about my family. I don't want to talk about my real life. I don't want to talk about my non-work life. Like, I just want to talk to you about stream. I'm happy to mention certain things about my relationship, but nothing more than I would share probably with stream.
Mm-hmm.
Because no offense, like this is first and foremost a working relationship. And then You know, I'm not looking for people to trauma dump onto because like I already have friends and family and like all that stuff.
Right. I mean,
And
that's how I feel. A lot of people look at like friends that I have online and they're like, this is your friend. Like, you should have
right.
treated them differently. And I'm like, they were my friend and I did talk to them a lot and we
Absolutely.
had like a connection, but they were an online friend. They still had tons of limits and boundaries to what it was that I was going to share with them about my personal
Yeah.
life, and tons of limits
Yeah.
and boundaries about what they were going to share with me about their personal life. So I don't, I feel like people look at these relationships online and they're like, that's your friend. And it's like, I don't know if you know the difference, but I know the
Mm.
difference. I can tell
Mm.
you there is a difference for sure.
I mean, I'll take it a step further. Like, I love my besties, but they're not obligated to tell me things they're not ready to tell me, or if they don't want to share it with me. Like,
Hmm.
I love and respect them. And if my friend, you know, if I ask them, like, hey, are you dating this person? You don't have to tell. I would probably preface it with, like, you don't have to tell me because I know it's like private. Like, dating someone is private. Like, involving yourself with people is private.
Hmm.
And, you know, I think people maybe take it too casually or they want to know the tea or something. But I think even with my best friend of 20 something years, if she for some reason wanted to keep her love life a little private for a while and keep it just for her and her partner, I would respect that. But I think that's
Hmm.
because I respect that person's agency. And so I think I was shocked that people felt entitled to that information
Yeah.
because I was like, no one is entitled to who you are. And even maybe it's not even romantic. Like, you're not entitled to people's personal relationship stuff.
Yes. No,
I just
I
thought
was
that was
shocked as
so
well
weird.
because like that's a thing in my like normal life as well, is that yes, sometimes I'll have friends who start dating each other and they don't want to tell
Yeah.
people because they don't want the friend
Right.
group to get weird. They don't want people to
Right.
like look at things differently, and they just want their own privacy and they want to be able to learn about each other privately. They want to be able to like do their own thing for a while. And if everybody else starts finding out and starts putting their own expectations on things or starts asking them a ton of questions about it, it just starts to change the dynamic of what it was that they had initially. And so once you
Yeah.
like get into a groove and you like feel comfortable with one another, then maybe eventually you'll start telling people. But yeah, like it's pretty common that even yes, it outside of online relationships, that yes,
Mhm.
in my real friend groups they will just not tell people and lie about it, and we would not be mad at them for lying about it because like yeah,
Mm.
you're choosing to keep that a secret, you're choosing to keep that as part of your personal life. And I compare this to like there were there were a number of times where other people were finding streamers' personal information, and they were finding like their real names, their addresses and shit, and it started to get shared, and those streamers would say, that's not my real name, that's not my, you guys got the wrong person, you guys are freaking idiots. And then other people would
Mm.
come back and be like, we confirmed it, I can't believe they lied to us about this. And I'm like, they're supposed to lie about this shit, what the fuck is wrong with
Literally.
you guys? They're literally supposed to lie about this. I don't know
Yeah.
what your
Yeah.
problem is. So then yes, so then in this case, when everybody's like, I can't believe you lied, we can't trust anything you say anymore. Like, this is shit that I'm supposed to lie about. This is what I'm
Yeah.
supposed to lie about. Like, I don't know what your problem is,
Yeah.
but I've held this standard. This isn't a new thing for just me. This is the standard that I held for all of these other people when their personal information was coming out. I said the same thing. They're supposed to lie about this. Leave them the fuck alone.
Yeah, I think it's hard because in an ideal world, like even in my own world, I try really, really, really hard not to lie unless it's for survival. And
Mhm.
obviously, like location, personal name, doxing, like that's all survival to me. Like, don't fucking ask that shit, bro. Don't put people in a position to ask that. Um, you know, and I think people innocently sometimes don't even think about the implication of like what they're asking. Like they think it's like funny or they're getting to know you or they think like, "Hey, we're friends, like tell me who you're dating." And they don't think about like all the implications of that or you know, maybe your partner doesn't want to be as active in the community anymore because it's
Mhm.
like now it's weird and people treat them differently. Absolutely. And I think that that's something that like even with my partner cuz he's offline, like people are always like, well, if Brittany doesn't share her relationship online, like she could be lying about everything. I would rather you think I'm lying than risk the privacy of my relationship for a partner who does not consent to being on the internet. Like,
Mhm.
it's just the idea that you think you're entitled to the details or to person's imagery or to the like, what were you doing here? It's like you're not entitled. I wish people didn't have to lie. Like, I thought that stood out to me. I was like, oh, both you and her decided not to tell the truth, but at the same time, it's like they shouldn't have asked in the first place because it's
Right.
fucking I understand what they were thinking. They weren't probably not thinking of the implications of the question.
Yeah, maybe.
You know what I mean? But here we
Maybe.
are, and I do,
I
yeah.
know some people did. That's what I mean. Is some people I specifically know I've had those conversations with them to say,
Yeah,
I am not talking to you about this. I don't talk to people
yeah,
about this. This is something that I will never reveal. And it's not just like a me thing. And this is like a thing that like a lot of people have trouble understanding as well, is that like this isn't like, obviously for somebody who's not a streamer, none of their personal information is anybody's business. So like me, I am very open with my life. I do talk about a lot of my personal life and my experiences and things from my past and all of that shit. But other people that I talk to, they don't do that. And so
right.
now you have this expectation that because I'm a streamer, now their personal life is supposed to be content
Totally.
now just because they're talking to me. That's insane. So yeah,
Totally.
I like with a lot of these people, I know they know that I was not going to share that information with them. I know they know that I've said numerous times, I will not talk about this sort of stuff with you, yet they will ask anyways. And that's, yeah, that just seems like an invasion of privacy. And that was like a problem that I had with specific people too many times, to where like, I had to keep saying, like, you're getting into my personal life too much. This is not your business. You don't need to be like concerned with this.
Yeah. You know, this brings into mind that one time I asked Lav on stream, just like I didn't even think about it because I didn't think it was a yes, which was my mistake. When I asked her if she slept with Steven, I was just like, I was making a funny, but it was like, did you do it, Lav? Did you do it? And it was like a big, but then I realized like now in hindsight, I was like, oh, fuck. I also put Lav in a situation to lie, which he did, you know, because apparently they had some intimacy. And then that became a whole thing because then Steven was like, Brittany, you don't know. And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And then I felt really dumb. And then I realized in hindsight, like, oh, I was like being so casual with it without thinking about the fact that maybe they don't want to talk about it. And so now I've put Lav in a situation to have to lie about it. But then I don't like being lied to. So then I got annoyed. And I still think that that's the problem with my brain, is I really don't fucking like being lied to. But also, what could Lav have done in that situation? Because if she had said like, I don't want to talk about it, you know what I mean? So like then it's like very confusing. I hate fucking being lied to. I just hate
because if she says I don't want to talk about it, everybody's going to take that as a yes. 100% of people will take that as a yes. And so yes, like nobody likes being lied to. Nobody likes finding out that they were lied to, and nobody likes feeling like the person that they trust is being dishonest with them. Nobody likes this. And so it's a it's like, it's a complicated thing where it's like, you as the asker, you have to understand the bounds of what it is that you should or shouldn't be asking in the first place. And if you choose to ask, you just kind of deserve to be lied to now. Like, you're just kind of asking for it at this point. And I don't think that for anybody, like any girl who I ever talk to on the internet, if they're intimate with me in any way, I'm sure they have the expectation that I am not going to share that with people. I will not tell people about it, and that I would lie to protect them. And if I didn't do this, so many women would just not trust me anymore. They would never message me. They would never say anything to me. And not just women, but like friends in general would think like, well, I can't tell you my personal information now because you think you have to be honest just because somebody asked. Like, and so, yeah, so somebody like gives me their real name or something like that, or their phone number, and somebody's like, hey, I found this. Is this their real phone number? I'm like, I cannot tell a lie. I have to say, yes, that is their phone number. Like, that is just such a weaselly thing to do. And it's bullshit. Like, that's not like real honesty or anything, because the honest thing is to make sure that the person who's giving you their intimate information and having an intimate relationship with you, that person who trusts you, that you don't let down their trust, that you do the right thing for them. And so for the person who I'm talking to, yes, with that person, I'm going to make sure they trust me. I'm going to make sure they believe in me, that they know that I'm not going to share their intimate information. And for the person asking, fuck you, you shouldn't have asked, that's your fault.
Yeah, that's I think like what I know it's hard to imagine, because like I said, like I'm happy to throw myself under the bus and say like, fuck, even I did that to Lav on stream. But I think it's hard for people to realize it until they are put in a like, I remember one time I had a caller that was really, really great, like a really great person, but they were trying to bond with me in like a jokey way. And I didn't share my location at the time, and they were like asking me what time zone I was in. I was like, you mean my real time zone? Because I usually use Eastern and Pacific for work, or
Eastern
CET
time's
because I'm in Europe now.
real time.
Yeah, and they were like, I want to know your time zone. And I was like, oh, you're doing that thing, huh? You're trying to like break the barrier of intimacy so like we can be closer. And they were like, oh. And I was like, now you've put me in a position of either lying to you or telling you to fuck off, right?
Hmm.
And so we talked about it, and it was one of those things where I was like, I know in normal society that's normal, but you're asking like a streamer. So it sounds
Right.
like you're trying to get closer to me inappropriately before we've hit that barrier. And so like it was very interesting like having to explain that but people don't do it maliciously. They do it
Right.
because they want to be closer to you and
Correct.
they want to, and so especially
Correct.
if you have a friendship that's already intact and then your friend asks you, it like, especially, oh my God, I've had it happen with my friends where, and this is the true testament to long-term friendship in my mind, is like allowing your friends to be uncomfortable so they can tell you at their own pace. Is like, I always tell my friend, like, I will sit and wait for you, but when you're ready, I'm happy to hear it. Or if you never want to tell me, that's okay too. But it is hard to look at someone and be like, you don't trust me, but it's not about you. It's about them and their timeline, and they might not be
Hmm.
ready to talk to you about it.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was just, yeah, the whole thing was a weird situation where I think if you think I did the wrong thing there, that's fine. I'm happy for you to leave and be mad at me and whatever, because I think you have absolutely no understanding of social dynamics in this space. But I got tons of messages from tons of girls just saying, hey, just wanted to let you know I can't say this publicly because everybody will freak out if I say it, but I wanted to let you know you did the right thing. No girl will ever trust you if you did, or if you were honest about these things, if you were putting their personal business out there. Like, every girl is watching what you're doing and appreciating it because they don't want that sort of shit out on the internet anyways. And so, like, you did the right thing. And like, but I think for other people, they just look at it as like, you lied to your friends. And to me, it's
Right.
like, okay, well, my friends were pieces of shit for putting me in that position in the first place, because either I'm going to be dishonest to this girl and share her information, or I'm going to be dishonest to you and lie to you. I have no good options here. I'm dishonest to one of these people and I'm going to be dishonest to the person who's putting me in the position to do this in the first place. That's the person who's going to have to lose out. Sorry.
Yeah, well, even I think more than that, I just think about if you're in it, let's say you're in a very serious marriage and you're like, you're on a team, you're going to prioritize that team over everyone's expectations. I hope so, at least. And so like if your partner, it comes down to protecting your partner, or, something like, you got to protect your partner.
Hmm.
And so that idea, I don't think is as common in other people's circles, maybe. I mean, it definitely wasn't mine. My parents, like, you protect each other, you focus on each other first and foremost. But yeah, I do think that that's an interesting perspective, to think that like, again, I don't like lying, but I also don't like being put in a position either. And so
Hmm.
it's like, fuck, like, like, if I have to make a decision, it's going to be to protect the people that are the priority.
Right.
Ultimately, like, that has to be the decision. So I obviously think you made the right decision in that moment. I'm surprised that it would have been a deal breaker for people, or maybe people were really upset with you, because honestly, part of me is like, what did you think he was going to do?
Hmm.
Like,
Right.
what else could he have done? What
Right.
else could anyone have done? Like, and again, I don't like lying, but I just don't know what else you thought was the better option, other than to, like, especially if you and her haven't talked about it, or if you did discuss it and you decided we're not going to tell people, and then it's
Hmm.
like, well, that's the deal, that's what matters more than anything.
Right. Yeah, and we did, and that is the thing that we came to is, yes, like, and we talked
Yeah.
about, like, when would we talk about this, and the fact that when we do, we're gonna have to say, like, yes, we did kind of keep this under wraps,
Sure.
and we did, people, if they did ask, we did have to lie about this and stuff, and we, like, we had to have kind of all those conversations, but for us, that was just like what was best at the time. And it's
don't
also, they're like, and I've mentioned this numerous times, but like with online relationships, there is just kind of this difference maker there, where like you're not actually in person. It is like just a completely different dynamic, and unless you're planning on meeting in person, it's just a totally different like thing altogether. It's a totally different beast. It's something that is like hard to even categorize it as like a specific type of relationship or whatever, like
Yeah.
long distance
Yeah.
relationships, or it's just, yeah, it's definitely
They're
a
incredibly
different
hard.
thing.
They're different. No, okay, you don't have to answer this, of course, but correct me if I'm wrong, just for my audience's sake. If I'm not mistaken, you guys were put into kind of like two shitty situations, right? Like one, you were asked something very personal in which like the expectation is that they were owed something, like an answer. But two, wasn't your relationship like leaked? Like somebody leaked it, or did you
So
come out with it first?
the stream that you were talking about, somebody sent me a download for Windows Media Player. So I pull up the Windows Media Player and I watched the video, and then when I X out of it, it just went straight to my library, and there was a video there that should not have been there. And so I just had to end stream and take it off, but people already screenshot it. They started passing it around. And weirdly, people started like going on streams and identifying the person, saying, "Oh, I know who this is," blah blah blah, which is just insanely disgusting. And
Insane.
then yeah,
Wait,
and then
I'm sorry. How would this community feel about celebrity leaks? Like, you gonna go look for like that is such a weird thing to do.
mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, you took someone's private like leak of someone's private photo or video, and then continue to spread it, and then tried to guess who it was.
Yep. Yeah, it was just
Psycho.
like the way that people engage with this is some of like the grossest stuff that I've ever seen, and I'm truly blown away at like the lack of outrage towards all of the people who are trying to make sure that everybody could identify this photo. Like, that was just
Psycho.
yes, it was insanely disgusting, and it feels weird because I'm the one person who can't really like have much of an opinion on this, and so I'm watching this thinking, fucking shit, like if I was the other person reviewing this, I would be the one person sitting there going, "You guys are all disgusting fucks. Like, what is wrong with you?
Gross.
Why would you think this is an okay thing to do? Like, this is like bordering revenge porn and shit." And
Isn't it kind of revengey porn? Can you spread people's nudes around?
So no, you can't. Yeah, definitely not. And but yeah, just the condemnation for that sort of behavior was not there. Nobody cared. Nobody had anything to say about it. Nobody cared to like keep identifying the person over and over on stream and keep like talking about who it was or talking about the like, yes, it was really weird. And the type of like the fact that this happened.
Consent violations, like the consent violations are like a fivefold. Like, I can't even imagine. My community is like grossed out by this behavior, but my community is very like, we try very hard to like, I couldn't even, if somebody posted that on my Discord, like they'd be banned. Like, you cannot do, that's not okay. Like, don't even screenshot it from Tom's stream. Like, super gross. Like, I don't even know how they justified it.
I like, again, they don't even have to justify it because it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of people out there who actually care or have any sort of condemnation of this sort of behavior. And so, yeah, it was just, yeah.
No, I don't like that at all. Yeah, I tried to keep up with all of it. I'm sure I missed some gaps in this story, but I think I was so confused at what was happening because I was like, I don't know how degenerate this space has become, but like, this is not an okay way to treat people, especially somebody who didn't volunteer for it to happen in the first place. I think there was like, probably just like I don't know, like an ugliness to it that I just didn't appreciate, I think.
Yep. Yeah. There's just like, there's like this weird, thing that, I don't know. I guess there's just a lot that I found out about this space that has me really disenchanted with it and kind of really like looking at everybody very differently now. And especially the types of relationships that I have online now, just like yes, I look at everybody completely differently at this point and have very different opinions of streamers in general and the way that they engaged in these sort of topics. So I'm I feel like I'm gonna be like talking to people and engaging with people very differently going forward.
Yeah, like I know that for me, I've been on YouTube a long time. This isn't the first time I've realized people have different values, but I've I really like the space for the most part. I really like you. I really like Kyla. I really like a lot of people in the space. So I hope to keep those bridges going. But even I'm like paying attention to how people react to certain things, and I'm like, okay, this is not how I want my community to react to certain things or spread certain things. And if you're willing to do it as like the streamer, That's not great, you know?
Hmm.
Now, I did hear you say something on stream, though, to Andrew
Yeah.
Wilson. And I assume you're not talking about me when you say you might not talk to women ever again,
Of
because
course not.
I'm
Of course not.
okay. I heard that. I told my husband, I was like, "He's not talking about me, though. He's not talking about me."
I wasn't actually saying that I wouldn't talk to women.
No,
He's
you weren't,
like,
you weren't.
he's being overly hyperbolic because he talks to women, and his wife goes
Of
on his
course.
show, and he goes on whatever podcast all the time and talks to big groups of women.
Yeah.
So even he's just fucking around when he's saying
Yeah.
like, never engage with women, never talk to women in the first place, never do content with women. Like, he's obviously joking.
Yeah.
That's his fucking business right now, is going on whatever podcast and talking to large groups of women. But I am definitely like, I think I mentioned this after the conversation with him, is that like I look at the entire situation and what happened throughout all of that and just kept thinking, damn, dude, if the genders were switched, like everything would have been different. And I can look at dozens of examples over and over where this sort of shit happens and nobody gives a fuck. But all of a sudden they give a fuck when it's like a woman who feels uncomfortable or something like that. And it's like, this is weird. Like, this is super weird, the way that you guys just like pick and choose. And when you will look at this and say, oh, well, it's different people with different values, but it's not. Like, it's not different values. The problem is hypocrisy and inconsistency, that they're like, that they're going to pick and choose based on what is convenient or what is optically convenient. But when it comes down to like, actually holding a standard and actually being consistent with that standard, that's when like it's obvious that they just don't actually hold that standard. They don't actually care. And that's the part that bothers me, is that, yeah, like it seems blatantly obvious that none of these people actually cared about any of this shit. It was just fun for them to like jump in and try to get content out of it.
I stand what I said. I stand by what I said on that WIC panel. I think this is manufactured. I think people are bored and they want clicks and views, and people are easy targets because they can spin it. I just think it's like not what I came to do on YouTube, and thank God I don't have to because I make a living. But like, it is one of those things where I think it feels also like really sad, and ultimately like I don't know what kind of audiences get built from this. But yeah, I don't trust people who move the like goalpost 1,000 times in a conversation. It makes me feel like this doesn't feels like a lie, and I don't like it.
It's everybody else seems to be perfectly okay with that. Just changing what your problem is over and over, changing like literally directly contradicting yourself over and over, and just like trying to find some way to stay mad. Like that, everybody else seems perfectly fine with that, and that's
Yeah.
that's
I don't
weird.
know why they are. You know, can I say something? And I think this is going to sound harsh. A part of me is like, okay, you're either building that TMZ like energy into your content, which is like fine, that's you do you, or like you're never going to make anything of yourself. Cause I'm thinking like long term here. I'm thinking 15, 20 years. Like, where do I want to be as a content creator? And I certainly like, cause like we're young. Like, Jordan Peterson's in his 60s doing content. You think we're going to, like, I'm not going to stop in my 60s. Like, I'm going to work.
Probably not. Yeah.
So you want a good reputation. You want a good connection with people. You also don't want to like get off on these small, stupid, nothing stories and then build a reputation for being those people, really. So it is kind of strange that they decide to do that. But sometimes I think it's because they don't think they have a career anyways. So for them, they don't care. They're willing to throw it away, maybe.
Yeah, so like for me, like using like review content is generally just a way for me to have like other conversations and make some sort of original content. Whereas for tons of people, they literally just don't make original content ever. Their entire thing is just watching other people who are interesting and have interesting lives and interesting perspectives and interesting stories, and just watching them and just using their content because they don't have their own life. They don't have their own experiences. They don't have their own shit going on to where they would ever be interesting enough for people to listen to. And so they'd rather just shit on people who actually do have that, and who are people with their own opinions and who have thought through things. And it's kind of weird, like the amount of people who just make an entire like channel just using other people's shit all the time. Like I like people will say this to me, and I'm like, yeah, like fair enough, but I like by far the majority of the videos that I'm posting are original content. It's not of me, like, I'm not reproducing, reviewing other people's videos pretty consistently.
Oh,
Most of my stuff is like debates, interviews, like panels, like it's my stuff. It's very original content that I'm making, that I'm producing.
You do pause forever, I know, because I listen to your streams, and you will pause and you will derail the conversation for 20 minutes because of a chatter, and I'm like, oh my God. And so yeah, you, Papa Gut, me, like, look, listen, if YouTube takes away my ability to react to content, I know I'm gonna be fine. Right? Like, and I think like that's kind of the point, is like we all react to have better, bigger conversations. Like, gosh, I ramble forever, but that's the point. It's like you're coming here to see Tom's view of this. I love I love watching you on Vaush. I like watching Papa Gut on Vaush. I'm just trying to get people's perspectives on the same story. Right? I'm not here for this. I'm here for your particular perspective. I want to know what Tom thinks. I want to know how Tom and I, if we align, if we're different. Oh, do I want to talk? Like, that's why I'm watching. And so again, I think that that's the audience you want to build, is an audience that wants to come hear your perspective, so they can be like, oh, I want to know what so-and-so. I watched this content creator once, like, review me for a second, which was fine. They didn't say nothing. I was like, oh my God, we've been here for like, nothing has happened. Like, I've heard nothing, no feedback, nothing. I was like, why am I watching myself talk? Like, it was so interesting.
Yeah, like I'll watch people review my content and they don't even have like a cam on screen. And when they do talk, it's just something like, oh, wow. Oh, cringe. Oh, man. And like, that's like the extent of the analysis that you get from them. And it's just, I see this all the time, and it's kind of obnoxious because like, I don't ever like, I don't care. I don't ever like say anything about it, or I would never do anything about it. Like I'm pretty open with my content, but it's, it's annoying.
Yeah, well, I'm definitely here for like the long haul, and I'm serious about being a content creator. I have been for a few years now in a real way. It's not just a hobby anymore. And I've seen a difference in also the people that I've attracted to my content, and I appreciate you being one of them. And so good on you for handling shit so well the last couple weeks, because honestly, it had me stressed.
Yeah, it was pretty stressful. I mean, there were like parts of like just the drama shit with like Kelly Jean and JSTLK, like that wasn't all that stressful. I didn't really care about that. But then like once like, yes, my personal life is now content, and like I want to pick and choose what parts of my life I share with my audience and what parts I don't. And when that is no longer my choice anymore, and it's no longer in my hands, that's like super stressful and annoying. And and yeah, they're like, people that I thought I trusted are like out there like putting out information about me and sharing my DMs and all sorts of shit like that. And it's just I already had a lot of boundaries on how I treat online relationships, and now instead I've put way more boundaries up. I've decided that there's way less that I will share with people that I think I'm close to behind the scenes. Like it'll probably be the same behind the scenes as it is on stream now for literally everybody. I am not talking to you about shit ever again, because that's where I fucked up, is just trusting somebody in the first place.
Yeah, like ultimately I think that's probably the best choice. And as much as I am so excited to meet new people in the space, like, it's like peace and love. I don't know who anybody is, but I hope that ultimately we all have good intentions, and if you don't, I will suss you out. I think that's what I'm trying to do. I'm like, do you have good intentions or bad intentions? I can't tell. With you, I feel like you have good intentions, and I hope I'm not wrong about that. And I think that's why I Wick, same thing. I think Wick has good intentions. I think a lot of people do, but man, if you ever double cross me, Tom,
oh,
if you ever share all my deep dark secrets,
you'll find out.
All right. Well, that's all I had on my noggin today. Did you want to talk to me about anything? Anything on your mind?
Shoot.
You don't have to. There's nothing going on.
Yeah, not really that I can think of.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing that I can think of right now. Most of my mind is thinking, I gotta go get some fucking nicotine.
Well, you do that. Enjoy yourself. Enjoy your stream. And I'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Brittany.
Okay. Bye, Tom.
Later.